The great crystal halls of Nexus Prime shimmered with light from a dozen different suns. This was the heart of the galactic hegemony, where decisions were made that affected billions of beings across thousands of worlds. Today, the High Council gathered for what most thought would be a routine meeting about another primitive species discovery. Ambassador HFY walked slowly through the massive doors. His forearms shook slightly as he carried the data crystals. The Sanctuary Coalition had sent him here with one simple mission: warn the hegemony about the humans. His people had been watching Earth for 3 years now, ever since the humans had launched their first faster-than-light probe. The council chamber was huge. Representatives from 12 major species sat in floating chairs arranged in a perfect circle. The Zephyrians looked like giant butterflies made of silver metal. The Lithoids resembled walking mountains of stone. The Veil Dancers were barely visible, appearing as shifting clouds of purple mist. All of them had ruled the galaxy together for 3,000 years. At the center sat Supreme Chancellor Vexthul. The massive Dominarch was twice the size of any other being present. His dark blue skin was covered in the scars that showed his rank in battle. His species had conquered 47 worlds through pure military strength. Nothing in the galaxy could stand against Dominarch warships when they decided to fight. "Begin your report," Vexthul commanded. His voice rumbled through the chamber like distant thunder. HFY activated the first data crystal. A holographic image of Earth appeared in the center of the circle. The blue and green planet looked peaceful, almost beautiful. White clouds drifted across its surface. It seemed like any of 1,000 garden worlds throughout the galaxy. "The humans live on the third planet of System Sol 3, HFY began. "They achieved faster-than-light travel 6 months ago. By our normal procedures, they should be ready for contact and integration into the hegemony." Several council members nodded. This was standard. Most species followed the same pattern. They developed spaceflight, were contacted by the hegemony, and were given a choice: join willingly or be conquered. Very few chose conquest. The hegemony's technology was simply too advanced. However, HFY continued, "Our detailed study of this species suggests they are unlike anything we have encountered before." He activated the second crystal. The peaceful image of Earth was replaced by scenes of human history. Wars raged across continents. Cities burned. Weapons of terrible power reduced entire landscapes to ash and radiation. "These humans have been fighting each other for their entire recorded history," HFY explained. "They have survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They have lived through asteroid impacts that would destroy most civilizations, volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun for decades, diseases that killed half their population. Each time they adapted and grew stronger." The Lithoid representative shifted in his chair. "Many species face natural disasters. This is not unusual." HFY activated the third crystal. Now the images showed human cities in deserts, underwater colonies, and settlements in frozen wastelands. Look at where they choose to live. Humans don't just survive hostile environments, they seek them out. They build their greatest cities in places that would kill most of us within hours. A murmur ran through the council. This was more interesting, but still not alarming. The fourth crystal showed human technology. But instead of advanced energy weapons or shields, it displayed simple but deadly devices: chemical explosives, nuclear weapons, kinetic projectiles, biological weapons. "Their technology focuses on destruction," HFY said. "They have created weapons that can poison entire worlds. They split atoms not for power but for warfare. They have engineered diseases that target specific genetic markers. Most disturbing of all, they test these weapons on themselves to understand how to survive them." Now the council was paying attention. The Veil Dancer representative leaned forward, her misty form condensing slightly. "Are you suggesting they are a threat to us?" HFY activated the final crystal. It showed recent observations of human space activity. Ships that ran much hotter than should be safe. Crews that endured acceleration forces that would crush most aliens. Mining operations that extracted resources from gas giant atmospheres and stellar coronas. "I am suggesting they are a threat to everything," HFY said quietly. "These humans don't just adapt to hostile conditions. They weaponize them. They look at a deadly environment and ask not, 'How do we survive this?' but, 'How do we make this kill our enemies?' Their own planet has been trying to eliminate them for millions of years, and they have turned every attempt into a tool of war." The chamber fell silent. This was far beyond what anyone had expected to hear about a primitive species. Kethavar continued. They call their world Earth, which means ground or soil in their language. But they also call it the world that forged us, and the planet that taught us to fight. They see their homeworld as a training ground, as preparation for something greater. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul leaned forward. His massive form cast a shadow across the central display. You speak as if they are already a galactic power. They have barely achieved interstellar flight. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow and crude. Their current technology is irrelevant, Kethavar replied. What matters is how they think. They don't see obstacles as barriers. They see them as puzzles to solve. They don't accept limitations. When faced with the impossible, they don't retreat. They find a way to make the impossible work for them. He gestured to the display, which now showed a human city built inside an active volcano. They built this settlement to harvest geothermal energy. The temperature at ground level is over 200 degrees. The air is toxic. Volcanic eruptions happen monthly. Most species would consider this location uninhabitable. Humans call it challenging, and build homes there for their families. The Zephyrian representative's wings fluttered nervously. What exactly are you asking us to do? Don't contact them, Kethavar said simply. Mark their system as forbidden space. Let them develop in isolation. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when they have learned peace, we can attempt contact. But not now. Not while they are still learning to fight. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul's laugh was like the sound of breaking stone. You ask us to fear a species that hasn't even left their home system? A people who fight with chemical explosives and metal projectiles? Our shields can stop antimatter weapons. Our ships travel faster than light. Our armies have conquered species far more advanced than these humans. Other council members began to voice agreement. The Dominarch military had never been defeated. The Hegemony's technology was supreme. What could one primitive world do against an empire that spanned the galaxy? Kethavar made one final attempt. Chancellor, with respect, you're thinking like a civilized being. Humans are not civilized. They are barely controlled predators who have learned to use tools. They don't fight wars to win territory or resources. They fight to prove they can win. They will study our tactics, copy our technology, and find ways to use our own strengths against us. Enough, Vexthul declared. The Council has heard your warning. We appreciate the Sanctuary Coalition's concern. However, the Hegemony has procedures for integrating new species. These humans will be offered the same choice as all others. Join us willingly or be conquered. The decision is made. The vote was swift and unanimous except for Kethavar's desperate abstention. First contact protocols would be followed. A diplomatic fleet would be dispatched to offer humanity membership in the Hegemony under standard terms. As the council session ended and representatives began to file out, Kethavar transmitted one final encrypted message to his homeworld. The predators are coming, and we just pointed them toward the deadliest prey in the galaxy. May whatever God still listen have mercy on us all. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Endeavour, watching Jupiter grow larger on the main screen. This was humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, built from the dreams of 100 nations and the sweat of 10 million workers. They had been traveling for 6 months, pushing the boundaries of human space when the sensors detected something impossible. Captain, Lieutenant Martinez called from his station. I'm reading multiple contacts approaching from the outer system. They're big, ma'am. Really big. Chen moved to the sensor display. 12 ships were moving toward them, each one larger than anything humanity had ever built. The smallest was 3 times the size of the Endeavour. The largest defied easy measurement. First contact protocols, Chen ordered quietly. Alert Earth, begin recording everything. And someone get me a translation program running. The alien ships took formation around the Endeavour with casual precision. They moved like they owned the solar system, like they owned everything. Chen had been in the Navy for 20 years and she knew predator behavior when she saw it. Incoming transmission, Captain, Communications Officer Park announced. It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies. The computer is working on translation. Put it through. The main screen flickered, then showed a being that made Chen's blood run cold. It looked vaguely humanoid but was easily 3 meters tall. Its skin was dark blue and covered in scars. Its eyes were black and cold. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding metal. Primitive vessel of the species called humans, I am Admiral Throckmar of the Galactic Hegemony. You will cease all movement and prepare to receive representatives. Your species has been selected for integration into our empire. Chen stepped forward. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earthship Endeavor. We represent the human species. We're willing to talk. There is nothing to discuss, the alien replied. Your choice is simple. Submit to Hegemony authority, and your species will be relocated to appropriate worlds where you will serve useful functions. Refuse, and your species will be eliminated to prevent future complications. You have one of your time periods called hours to respond. The transmission ended. The bridge fell silent except for the hum of life support systems. Captain, Park said quietly, I'm receiving data files from their ship. Looks like translation matrices and detailed terms of surrender. Chen read through the terms on her personal display. 90% of humanity would be moved to labor worlds. All military equipment would be destroyed. Earth would become a resource extraction site. Humans would be classified as a servant species, ranked below most alien races. How long until Earth gets our message? Chen asked. At current distance, about 40 minutes each way, Martinez replied. So we're on our own for at least an hour and a half. Chen looked around the bridge at her crew. 37 people representing the best of humanity. Scientists, soldiers, explorers. People who had volunteered to risk everything to push humanity into the unknown. Recommendations? She asked. We could try to run, suggested Martinez. Our engines might be faster than they expect. We could ask for more time, offered Park. Try to negotiate. Chief Engineer Rodriguez spoke from the back of the bridge. Captain, with respect, there's a third option. Chen turned to face him. Rodriguez was a quiet man, but he understood machines better than anyone she had ever met. They're treating us like we're helpless, Rodriguez continued. Like we don't have any choice but to surrender or die. But they made one mistake. Hey, what's that? They got close enough for us to hurt them. Chen felt something cold settle in her chest. Explain. Rodriguez moved to a console and brought up ship schematics. The Endeavor wasn't designed as a warship, but she's human engineering. We build things tough because space is dangerous. Our fusion reactor runs hotter and harder than anything they probably expect. Our hull is designed to handle asteroid impacts. Our cargo bays are modular. He highlighted sections of the ship. We're carrying 12 research modules that can be jettisoned independently. Each one has its own guidance system for landing on planets. If we strip out the science equipment and fill them with reactor mass, you're talking about turning our ship into a weapon, Chen said. I'm talking about showing them that humans don't surrender, Rodriguez replied. Ever. Chen activated the ship's internal communication system. All hands, this is the captain. As you all know, we've made contact with an alien species. They've given us an ultimatum. Surrender or be destroyed. I want everyone to understand what surrender means. She transmitted the alien terms to every screen on the ship. In the cargo bays, laboratories, and crew quarters, 37 people read about humanity's future as slaves. I'm not ordering anyone to fight, Chen continued. This is volunteer only. Anyone who wants to record a message for their families, do it now. Anyone who doesn't want to be part of what comes next, get to the escape pods. She waited. Nobody moved. Rodriguez, how long do you need? 20 minutes to prep the modules. Another 10 to overload the reactor for maximum yield. Do it. The next 20 minutes were controlled chaos. The crew worked with the efficiency of people who knew their lives depended on speed. Research modules were emptied and filled with reactor material. Guidance systems were reprogrammed. The Endeavor's fusion reactor was pushed beyond all safety limits. When the alien deadline arrived, Chen was ready. Alien fleet. This is Captain Chen. I have our response to your ultimatum. Admiral Throckmar appeared on the screen again. You will submit? Counteroffer, Chen said calmly. You have 30 seconds to leave our system before we show you why humans don't negotiate with kidnappers. The alien's expression changed to what might have been confusion. You cannot be serious. You have one primitive ship. We have 12 warships with enough firepower to reduce your planet to ash. 20 seconds, Chen replied. Your weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Your primitive technology is no threat to us. 10 seconds, Throckmar's image disappeared. Chen could see the alien ships powering weapons and moving to attack formation. All hands prepare for acceleration, Chen announced. Then she looked at her navigation officer. Set course for the biggest ship. Maximum thrust. The Endeavor leaped forward like a hunting cat. The sudden acceleration pressed everyone into their seats as the ship screamed toward the alien flagship at speeds that made the hull groan. Alien weapons fired. but the beam seemed confused by the Endeavor's erratic movement. Rodriguez was jettisoning the modified research modules in sequence, each one following a different trajectory toward different alien ships. "They're trying to intercept the modules," Martinez reported. "Their point defense is tracking them." "Let them," Chen said. "That's not the real attack." The first module detonated as alien weapons hit it. The explosion was much larger than expected as the reactor material went critical. The second module made it closer before being destroyed. The third actually reached an alien ship before detonating against their shields. By the time the aliens realized the modules were just a distraction, it was too late. The Endeavor, running far beyond safe power levels, rammed directly into the side of the alien flagship. At the moment of impact, Rodriguez triggered the ship's reactor overload. The explosion lit up the space around Jupiter like a small sun. When the light faded, 3 alien ships were destroyed and the rest were retreating toward the outer system. Admiral Throckmar's final transmission was barely coherent. "Command, the humans. They turned their own ship into a weapon, their own crew into ammunition. What kind of species does that? What kind of species wins doing that? On Earth, the recording of humanity's first contact reached every television, computer, and communication device within hours. The message was clear. Aliens existed, they wanted humanity as slaves, and they had just learned that humans would rather die fighting than live kneeling. The response was immediate and unanimous. If the galaxy wanted a war, they would get one. But they had made one critical mistake. They had threatened the only species that had learned to survive by making their own world try to kill them harder. And now humanity had something new to survive against. Admiral Krickstall studied the tactical display with growing unease. 200 Hegemony warships hung in formation at the edge of the Sol system, enough firepower to reduce any known civilization to radioactive dust. This was the largest punitive fleet ever assembled, created specifically to teach humanity the price of defying the Hegemony. "Begin the advance," Krickstall ordered. "All ships, maximum alert. These humans have proven they are willing to die, but numbers will tell in the end." The fleet moved forward, sensors scanning for human vessels. Intelligence reports suggested Earth's population had been evacuated, probably to hidden colonies in other systems. The homeworld appeared defenseless, its orbital stations dark and silent. "Admiral," his sensor operator reported, "I'm reading some unusual activity in the asteroid belt. Multiple moving objects, but the signatures are unclear. Probably refugees. Trying to hide in the rocks," Krickstall said dismissively. "We'll deal with them after we secure the primary world." As the fleet approached Mars, the first surprise revealed itself. The red planet's surface erupted with activity as massive installations rose from hidden bunkers. But these weren't typical defensive platforms. "Those are railguns," the tactical officer said with disbelief. "Kinetic projectiles, but, Admiral, the velocities are impossible. Nothing should be able to accelerate mass to those speeds." Krickstall watched the display as chunks of metal began flying from Mars toward his fleet. His shields could stop energy weapons and antimatter warheads with ease. But these were simple rocks and metal, moving at significant fractions of light speed. The first projectile hit the heavy cruiser Dominance. The shields flared and died instantly. The projectile punched through the ship from bow to stern, leaving a perfectly round hole. Everything it touched simply ceased to exist. "Evasive action," Krickstall screamed, but more projectiles were already in flight. The humans had turned Mars into a giant artillery platform, using the planet's lower gravity to launch projectiles at velocities that turned physics into a weapon. "Admiral, the asteroid belt," the sensor operator called out. "The objects are moving under power. They're not asteroids anymore." On the display, thousands of rocks began changing course and accelerating. Each one showed the heat signature of engines and guidance systems. The humans had weaponized the entire asteroid belt, turning every piece of space debris into a guided missile. "This is impossible," Krickstall muttered. "No species has ever militarized an entire star system." "Sir," communications reported, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth." The main screen showed a human woman in military uniform standing in what looked like a command bunker. Behind her, displays showed tactical information that made Krickstall's blood run cold. The humans were tracking every ship in his fleet individually. "I'm Admiral Rebecca Torres, United Earth Defense Command," she said calmly. "You are trespassing in human space. Leave now and you will be permitted to retreat. Continue your advance and you will be destroyed." Crixtal found his voice. "You cannot threaten us. We are the Galactic Hegemony. We have conquered 1,000 worlds." Torres smiled, and Crixtal realized it was the same expression a predator might wear before attacking prey. "You conquered species that fought like you do. We don't fight like anyone else. Last warning, retreat or be destroyed." The transmission ended. Crixtal stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what he was facing. His fleet was the most powerful military force in known space. These humans had crude technology and no experience with galactic warfare. "All ships continue the advance," he ordered. "Concentrate fire on Earth. Show them what real weapons can do." That was when the humans revealed their masterpiece. Earth's moon suddenly blazed with light as hidden mass drivers across its surface began firing. But these weren't shooting at the Hegemony fleet. They were shooting at Earth itself. "What are they doing?" the tactical officer asked in confusion. Then Crixtal understood, and the understanding filled him with horror. The humans weren't shooting at their own planet. They were using their planet's gravity well as a slingshot. Chunks of lunar rock were being fired at Earth, where they would swing around the planet and be launched toward the fleet at velocities approaching light speed. Maximum shields. "All power to defense," Crixtal ordered, but he knew it was already too late. The first salvo arrived 8 minutes later. Simple rocks, some no bigger than a human fist, moving at 30% of light speed. Hegemony shields, designed to stop the most advanced energy weapons in the galaxy, proved useless against basic physics applied with human creativity. Ships began dying, not just taking damage but ceasing to exist as the kinetic energy turned matter into plasma. The heavy battlecruiser, inevitable, vanished in a flash of light when a basketball-sized chunk of lunar rock hit it amidships. "Retreat," Crixtal ordered. "All ships emergency jump to hyperspace." But the humans had planned for that too. The modified asteroids began detonating throughout the system, creating gravity waves that made hyperspace jumps impossible. The fleet was trapped in normal space, unable to flee or hide. That was when the human ships revealed themselves. They didn't emerge from behind planets or moons. They simply appeared, dropping stealth fields that had made them invisible even at close range. These weren't the primitive vessels intelligence had described. They were nightmares of human engineering, built by people who had learned to thrive in environments that would kill anything else. The ships ran hot, not just warm, but at temperatures that would melt most alien hulls. Their engines pushed acceleration levels that would turn most species into paste. Their weapons were based on principles the Hegemony had considered too dangerous to use. "They're using controlled fusion detonations as projectiles," the tactical officer reported in disbelief. "They're literally shooting miniature stars at us." One human ship accelerated directly at the flagship, its hull glowing white-hot from atmospheric friction in space that shouldn't have atmosphere. It was moving so fast that time dilation effects made it appear to flicker. "All weapons, fire on that ship," Crixtal ordered. Energy beams lanced out, but the human vessel seemed to anticipate every shot. It moved like a living thing, dancing between weapons fire with impossible precision. When it fired back, its weapons punched through Hegemony shields like they weren't there. "How are they moving like that?" someone asked. "The crew would have to be pulling 50 gravities," another officer replied. "Nothing can survive that kind of acceleration." But the humans could. They had built their ships for crews tough enough to handle forces that would kill other species. They had turned their own biological resilience into a military advantage. The battle became a slaughter. Human ships moved faster, hit harder, and endured more damage than anything in Hegemony experience. Their weapons were crude but devastatingly effective. Their tactics were unlike anything in military doctrine. Most terrifying of all, they seemed to be enjoying themselves. Radio intercepts caught human crews laughing and joking as they destroyed ships that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. "This is incredible," one human pilot broadcast. "Did you see that cruiser just fold in half? Physics is so much fun when you weaponize it. Another voice replied, "Save some for me. I've got a new kinetic impactor design I want to test." They were treating the battle like a laboratory experiment. Like they were having fun with the engineering challenge. Krixtal's flagship shuddered as another human weapon struck home. Half his fleet was already dead or dying. The survivors were scattered and demoralized, facing an enemy they couldn't understand or counter. "Admiral, incoming communication from the human flagship," his communications officer reported. Admiral Torres appeared on screen again, still wearing that predator smile. "Ready to discuss surrender terms?" "This is impossible," Krixtal said weakly. "Our technology is superior. Our experience is greater. We have conquered the galaxy. Your technology is designed for civilized warfare," Torres replied. "We're not civilized. We're the species that learned to fight by having our own planet try to kill us for millions of years. Did you really think you could do better than Earth?" Around his flagship, the remnants of the greatest military fleet in galactic history continued to die. Human ships moved through the wreckage like sharks through blood, hunting down survivors with casual efficiency. "Please," Krixtal said. "We surrender. Allow my ships to retreat." "Oh, I'm not accepting your surrender," Torres said cheerfully. "I'm offering you the chance to surrender to my government back on Earth. But first, you're going to carry a message back to your hegemony." She leaned forward and her expression became deadly serious. "Tell them that humans don't want to conquer the galaxy. We just want to be left alone. But if they send another fleet to our system, we won't wait for them to arrive. We'll come looking for them. And when we find them, we'll show them what happens when you threaten a species that weaponizes everything." The transmission ended. Krixtal looked around his shattered bridge and realized the horrible truth. Humanity hadn't just won a battle. They had redefined warfare itself. They weren't just resistant to hostile environments. They had become a hostile environment that could think, plan, and build weapons. As his ship limped away with the few other survivors, Krixtal composed his report to Hegemony Command. But how could he explain what he had witnessed? How could he tell them that humanity wasn't just a no Supreme Chancellor? Vexthal stood in his private war room, staring at the holographic display that showed the remains of Admiral Krixtal's fleet. 200 warships reduced to 12 barely functioning vessels. The greatest military disaster in hegemony history, inflicted by a single species that hadn't even left its home system until recently. "How?" he asked the empty room. "How did primitives with crude weapons destroy our most advanced fleet?" The answer came from Intelligence Director Mothka, whose spider-like form materialized from the shadows. "They didn't fight like primitives, Chancellor. They fought like something we've never encountered before. They weaponized physics itself." Vexthal turned the massive display, watching recordings of human ships moving at impossible speeds, enduring accelerations that should have killed their crews, firing weapons that turned simple mass into devastating projectiles. "What are our options?" he asked. "The Grand Fleet," Mothka replied. 50,000 ships. Every major vessel in hegemony space. If we concentrate our entire military might, surely even these humans cannot stand against us." Vexthal nodded slowly. "Begin mobilization. Send word to every sector. I want every ship, every weapon, every soldier. We will end this threat once and for all." But as the Grand Fleet began to assemble, humanity was already moving. Captain Maria Santos guided her ship through the hyperspace corridor, leading a small convoy of human vessels toward the Kepler sector. These weren't warships. They were exploration vessels modified for a very different kind of mission. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're receiving signals from the colony on Kepler 7. Looks like the local population is requesting contact." Santos smiled. This was the part of the war that the hegemony would never understand. While they gathered their forces for a massive battle, humanity was fighting a completely different kind of campaign. "Open a channel to the surface," she ordered. The main screen showed a being that looked like a cross between a crab and a flower, with delicate petals surrounding a hard shell. This was a crystalline singer, one of the hegemony's subject species. "I am Harmony of Seven Voices," the being said in carefully translated hegemony standard. "We received your transmission. Is it true that you are at war with the hegemony?" "That's right," Santos replied. "We're humans. The hegemony tried to enslave us. We said no and backed it up with weapons. Now we're here to talk. We have served the hegemony for 800 years, Harmony of Seven Voices said sadly. Our music was considered too dangerous for warfare, so they made us mine crystals instead. What could you possibly offer us? Santos activated a recording device. Let me show you something. This is what human military doctrine calls acoustic warfare. The display showed human soldiers using sound weapons, devices that could shatter armor, disorient enemies, or even level buildings through carefully controlled vibrations, but these were crude compared to what the crystalline singers could naturally produce. Your people don't just make music, Santos continued. You manipulate sound itself. With human technology to amplify your natural abilities, you could shatter hegemony warships from the inside out. You could make their hulls resonate until they tore themselves apart. For the first time in centuries, Harmony of Seven Voices began to sing. Not the soft melodies required for crystal mining, but the deep, powerful harmonies that were the true voice of her people. The sound made the human ship's hull vibrate like a struck bell. We had forgotten, she whispered. We had forgotten how to sing war songs. We can teach you to remember, Santos said. And in return, you can teach us things about sound manipulation that our scientists never dreamed of. Together, we can make the hegemony's ships sing themselves to death. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy as human exploration ships made contact with subject species after subject species. The message was always the same. Humanity didn't want to conquer anyone. They wanted to teach everyone else how to fight back. On the mining world of Ferric 12, the lithoid workers learned about human-powered armor technology. These rock-based beings had been considered useless as soldiers because they moved too slowly. But equipped with human-designed exoskeletons, they became unstoppable juggernauts who could walk through weapons fire that would destroy conventional troops. The insect-like swarm minds of the hive worlds discovered that their natural telepathic networks, combined with human tactical doctrine, could coordinate attacks across entire star systems. No hegemony force could compete with an army that shared thoughts at the speed of light. Even the peaceful gardeners found their role in the rebellion. Their ability to control plant growth, enhanced by human genetic engineering techniques, created biological weapons that could consume hegemony installations from within. But it was the response of the Veil Dancers that truly demonstrated humanity's revolutionary approach to warfare on their homeworld of Mist 7. The ethereal beings had lived as barely corporeal entities for millennia. The hegemony used them as spies and infiltrators, taking advantage of their ability to phase through solid matter. They were considered harmless because they couldn't affect the physical world directly. Lieutenant Commander Jack Morrison stood in the Veil Dancer Council chamber, his environmental suit the only thing protecting him from an atmosphere that would dissolve human lungs. Around him, shifting forms of purple energy danced like living smoke. You can phase through matter, Morrison said, addressing the council. That means you can phase through shields, through armor, through hull plating. You could appear inside enemy ships and plant explosives directly in their reactor cores. The lead Veil Dancer, who called herself Whisper Between Worlds, pulsed with interest. The hegemony has always forbidden us from entering their ships without permission. They say it is too dangerous. They're right, Morrison replied with a grin that the aliens were learning to recognize and fear. It's incredibly dangerous. For them. He activated a holographic display showing human demolition charges. These are quantum destabilizers. They're designed to cause matter to forget how to hold together. If you could place these inside hegemony ships, Whisper Between Worlds' form began to glow brighter. We could destroy their entire fleet without them ever knowing we were there. Exactly. You wouldn't be helpless victims anymore. You'd be ghosts with nuclear weapons. Within weeks, the rebellion had spread across dozens of star systems. Species that had been oppressed for centuries suddenly found themselves with the tools and knowledge to fight back effectively. But more importantly, they found something else. Hope. Supreme Chancellor Vex Thule watched the reports pour in from across his empire. Rebellions on 43 worlds. Hegemony installations destroyed or captured. Entire sectors declaring independence. And at the center of it all, human advisors teaching guerrilla tactics and advanced warfare to species that had never fought back before. This is impossible, he said to his war council. We have superior technology, better ships, more experience. How are we losing to primitives and their pet rebellion? Intelligence Director Mothka brought up a tactical analysis. Because they're not fighting us the way we expected, Chancellor. Traditional military doctrine assumes opponents will use similar strategies and technologies. Humans don't follow traditional doctrine. They study our weaknesses and teach others how to exploit them. Give me an example. The attack on Mining Station Omega-7, Mothka replied, highlighting a recent incident. Lithoid rebels wearing human-designed power armor walked through our defensive fire and tore the station apart with their bare hands. Our weapons couldn't penetrate their armor, and their natural rock-like biology absorbed impacts that would destroy conventional soldiers. Another tactical display appeared. The destruction of Patrol Fleet Gamma. Crystalline singers used harmonic resonance to shatter our ship's hull integrity. They turned their own voices into weapons that could destroy warships from light years away. Vexthul felt a cold certainty settling in his chest. They're not just starting rebellions. They're teaching the galaxy how to fight us. Worse than that, Mothka continued. They're studying us. Every battle, every engagement, they learn more about our technology and tactics. Meanwhile, they're sharing that knowledge with every species they encounter. It's like facing an enemy that gets smarter every time you fight them. What about the Grand Fleet? Assembling on schedule. 50,000 ships ready to move on the human home system within the month. Vexthul studied the galactic map, noting the spreading areas of rebellion. Half his empire was in revolt, inspired and equipped by human advisors who seemed to appear everywhere at once. Cancel the Grand Fleet deployment, he said quietly. Chancellor, don't you see? They want us to send everything to Earth. While we're trying to destroy their homeworld, their agents will complete the conquest of our empire from within. By the time we finish with Earth, we'll have nothing left to return to. Mothka's many eyes blinked in sequence. Then what do you suggest? Vexthul looked at the tactical displays one more time, seeing his empire crumbling under assault from an enemy that fought unlike anything in galactic history. An enemy that didn't just defeat their opponents but taught everyone else how to defeat them too. Send a message to Earth, he said finally. Request. The final battle for Nexus Prime was unlike anything in galactic history. Supreme Chancellor Vexthul stood in his command center, watching the tactical displays with growing despair. The Grand Fleet, reduced to 30,000 ships by constant rebellions and human harassment, hung in defensive formation around the capital world. Approaching them was an armada that should have been impossible. 200 different species flew together under unified command. Crystalline singers whose ships hummed with harmonic weapons, lithoid vessels built like flying fortresses, veil dancer ships that flickered in and out of normal space, swarm mined fleets that moved with perfect coordination, and scattered throughout the alien coalition, human vessels that had evolved far beyond their original designs. How many are there? Vexthul asked his tactical officer. Unknown, Chancellor. They keep phase shifting and using stealth technology. Conservative estimate is 15,000 ships, but they could have twice that number. Admiral Rebecca Torres stood on the bridge of the UES Defiance, humanity's first true warship. Built from the lessons of a year of constant warfare, it was a hybrid of human engineering and alien technology. The crew was equally hybrid: humans, lithoids, crystalline singers, and a dozen other species working together with a coordination that seemed almost telepathic. Status report, Torres requested. All coalition fleets report ready, her tactical officer replied. Commander Singh was human, but his assistant was a swarm-mind individual who could coordinate with thousands of other ships instantly. The Veil Dancers have infiltrated 12 Hegemony command ships and planted quantum destabilizers. The lithoid assault wings are prepared for boarding actions. The crystalline singers are harmonizing for a coordinated resonance attack. Torres nodded, studying the enemy formation. A year ago, this force would have been unbeatable. The Hegemony's technological superiority had dominated the galaxy for millennia. But technology was only part of warfare, and the humans had taught the galaxy the other parts. Open a channel to the Hegemony flagship, she ordered. The main screen showed Supreme Chancellor Vexthul in his command center. The massive Dominarch looked older, more tired than in previous encounters. The weight of a failing empire showed in his scarred features. Chancellor, Torres said formally, this is your last chance to surrender. Your empire is finished. Most of your worlds have joined the coalition. Your fleets are scattered and demoralized. End this now and we can talk about terms. Vexthul's laugh was bitter. Terms? What terms could you possibly offer? We are the Galactic Hegemony. We do not surrender to primitives and rebels. You're not the Galactic Hegemony anymore, Torres replied calmly. You're the last holdouts of a system that the galaxy has rejected. Look around you, Chancellor. How many of your subject species are fighting for you today? Vexthal glanced at his own tactical displays. The truth was obvious. His fleet was entirely Dominarch vessels with a few loyal species. Everyone else had joined the rebellion or declared neutrality. We conquered this galaxy once, he said stubbornly. We can do it again. With what? Torres asked. Your technology? Half your fleet is using weapon systems the rebels have learned to counter. Your tactics? We've been studying your military doctrine for a year and teaching everyone how to beat it. Your superior numbers. Look at your screen, Chancellor. You're outnumbered 3-1 by people you used to rule. She leaned forward. You conquered the galaxy when it was divided and afraid. Now it's united and angry. That's the difference humans made. We didn't just fight you. We taught everyone else that you could be fought. The transmission ended. Vexthal stared at the tactical display, knowing that Torres was right. The Hegemony's advantage had always been that they faced divided opposition. Individual species might rebel, but they had never worked together. Humans had changed that, creating a coalition that shared technology, tactics, and determination. All ships, he commanded. Attack formation. If we're going to die, we'll die as warriors. The battle began with the crystalline singers. Across the coalition fleet, thousands of voices joined in perfect harmony. The sound, amplified by human acoustic technology, reached across space itself. Hegemony ships began to resonate, their hulls vibrating at frequencies that tore metal apart. The heavy cruiser Dominance shattered like glass, its hull fragmenting into a million pieces. The battleship Inevitable folded in half as harmonic stress concentrators made its armor tear itself apart. But the Hegemony fleet fought back with desperate skill. Energy weapons carved through coalition ships. Antimatter warheads lit up space with devastating explosions. For a few minutes, it seemed like traditional military superiority might prevail. Then the veiled answer struck. Purple forms materialized throughout the Hegemony fleet, appearing inside ships where shields couldn't protect them. Quantum destabilizers detonated in reactor cores, command centers, and weapons bays. Hegemony vessels began exploding from within as ghostly saboteurs destroyed them from the inside. Lithoid assault wings. You're clear for boarding actions, Torres commanded. The rock-based aliens accelerated toward Hegemony ships in powered armor that made them look like living asteroids. Point defense systems tried to stop them, but lithoid natural armor combined with human shielding made them nearly indestructible. They crashed through hull plating and began tearing ships apart from within. But it was the human ships that truly terrified the defenders. These vessels had evolved through constant combat, becoming something beyond normal engineering. They moved like living things, accelerated beyond what should be possible, and carried weapons that violated conventional military thinking. One human destroyer, the U.S. Persistence, accelerated directly toward the Hegemony flagship. Enemy fire concentrated on it, but the ship seemed to absorb the damage and keep coming. When it finally reached the battleship, it didn't ram or explode. Instead, it deployed a device that the Hegemony had never seen before. The human ship attached itself to the enemy vessel like a parasite and began cutting through the hull with industrial mining lasers. Within minutes, human Marines were inside the flagship, fighting hand-to-hand combat in the corridors. This is insane, Vexthal's tactical officer reported. They're using cutting tools as weapons. They turned a mining ship into a boarding craft. Everything is a weapon to them, Vexthal replied quietly. That's what we never understood. The battle turned into a slaughter. Hegemony forces, accustomed to overwhelming technological superiority, found themselves outfought by inferior equipment used with human creativity. Their advanced shields were useless against harmonic weapons. Their superior armor couldn't protect against attacks from within. Their tactical superiority meant nothing against an enemy that coordinated across species barriers. Most importantly, their soldiers were fighting to maintain an empire. The coalition forces were fighting for freedom. The difference in motivation was decisive. Chancellor, his communications officer, called. Multiple hull breaches on decks 7 through 15. Human Marines have reached the primary command center. Security forces are falling back. Vexthal looked around his command center one last time. Through the armored windows, he could see his fleet dying. Hegemony ships burned or drifted powerless while coalition forces moved through the wreckage like predators hunting wounded. Pray, open a channel to the human flagship, he said. Finally, Torres appeared on the screen, her expression no longer showing the predator smile. Now she looked like a professional soldier accepting the surrender of a beaten enemy. I surrender, Vexthul said simply. Not just my ship, but what remains of the hegemony. The war is over. Terms? Torres asked. Whatever you dictate. We have no leverage left. Torres was quiet for a moment, consulting with advisors off-screen. When she returned, her expression was surprisingly mild. Here's what's going to happen, she said. The hegemony as a government ceases to exist. All subject species are free to choose their own governments. Any species that wants to join the Galactic Coalition is welcome. Any that want independence can have it. Vexthul blinked in surprise. That's remarkably generous. We're not finished, Torres continued. All hegemony military assets are to be turned over to coalition forces or destroyed. War criminals will be tried by courts composed of representatives from every affected species, and the Dominarch people will be relocated to worlds where they can live peacefully without the temptation to conquer others. And if we refuse? Torres's predator smile returned. Chancellor, you just watched 100 different species work together to destroy the most powerful empire in galactic history. Do you really think we can't handle one stubborn species that refuses to play nice? The formal surrender took place on Nexus Prime itself. Representatives from 200 species gathered in the crystal halls where the hegemony had ruled for millennia. But instead of conquerors dictating terms to the defeated, this looked more like a constitutional convention. Ambassador Kethvar, the being who had originally warned against contacting humanity, found himself elected as the first Secretary General of the Galactic Coalition. Standing at the podium where Supreme Chancellors had once commanded obedience, he addressed the assembled delegates. We gather here not as victors and defeated, but as equals choosing our common future, he began.